Two men start a lean bulk on the same Monday. They're within 4 pounds of each other and within 2% body fat. They eat the same number of calories, 250 above their measured maintenance. They follow the same hypertrophy workout routine, 4 days a week with matched exercise order and rep ranges. They aren't training partners, but they share a coach who's put them on identical plans because their starting metrics are nearly identical. 12 weeks later, one of them has gained 6 pounds. A DEXA scan shows 4.5 pounds of lean tissue and 1.5 pounds of fat. The other has gained 7 pounds. His scan shows 2 pounds of lean tissue and 5 pounds of fat. Same diet, same training, same starting point, different bodies. The coach blames adherence first, the way coaches do. He checks the food logs and the gym logs. The logs are clean. Both men ate what they were told to eat. Both men trained as prescribed. The variable he eventually finds is one he didn't write into the plan and didn't think to ask about, which is when the meals happened in relation to the workout. The man who built mostly muscle ate his largest meal of the day within 45 minutes of finishing his last set. The man who built mostly fat ate 3 small meals, spaced through the day, and his largest meal at dinner, 4 hours after training. To understand why those 4 hours mattered, you have to look at what's happening inside skeletal muscle while a person is lifting, and for the period immediately after. A muscle cell stores glucose as glycogen. When the muscle contracts hard enough and long enough, sets taken close to failure, the kind that produce real mechanical tension, the cell begins to deplete that glycogen, and the cell membrane responds. Specifically, a glucose transporter called GLUT4, which normally lives inside the cell in small storage vesicles, begins moving to the cell surface. That's called translocation. It's the mechanism by which a muscle cell pulls glucose out of the bloodstream. GLUT4 translocation happens in 2 distinct ways. The first is insulin-mediated, the everyday way the body manages blood sugar. The pancreas releases insulin after a meal. Insulin binds to its receptor on muscle and fat cells, and a signaling cascade pulls GLUT4 to the surface. The second way is contraction-mediated. It doesn't require insulin. It's triggered by the contraction itself, through a separate pathway involving an enzyme called AMP-activated protein kinase. The 2 pathways are additive. This is the part that matters for the lean bulk. After a hard hypertrophy workout, the muscle has run both pathways simultaneously. It's emptied a meaningful portion of its glycogen. Its cell membrane is studded with GLUT4. The cell is, in effect, holding the door open. Insulin sensitivity in trained skeletal muscle, measured properly, can be 2 to 3 times higher in the hour after exercise than it was at rest that morning. The window is real. It's simply been described inaccurately for the last 20 years. Adipose tissue, meanwhile, hasn't been training. Its insulin sensitivity is unchanged. If anything, in the post-exercise period, fat cell glucose uptake is slightly suppressed because circulating cortisol and growth hormone remain elevated and both push lipolysis. So for a brief period after a hard set of squats, you have one tissue holding the door wide open and another tissue with the door mostly closed. Eat a large meal into that state, and the partitioning of nutrients isn't close to neutral. The calories go where the doors are open. Eat the same meal 4 hours later, and the picture is different. GLUT4 has begun returning to its intracellular storage. Cortisol has dropped. The muscle is still hungry, but no longer privileged. The meal gets sorted by ordinary metabolic rules, which means a significant portion of any caloric surplus is partitioned to adipose tissue. Not all of it, and not even most of it, but enough that repeated over 12 weeks, the difference between the 2 men in the opening case becomes mathematically inevitable. The original anabolic window literature, the part that got dismissed, focused on a different question. It focused on muscle protein synthesis, and asked whether protein eaten within 30 minutes of training produced more synthesis than protein eaten 2 hours later. The honest answer turned out to be, not by much, if total daily protein intake is adequate. That finding was correct. It was also incomplete. It treated the window as a protein timing question, when the more interesting question was always about carbohydrate partitioning in a caloric surplus. Nobody was running a hard lean bulk in those early studies. They were measuring synthesis in trained subjects in energy balance. Different context, different question. The conclusion drawn, that nutrient timing doesn't matter, was a conclusion about protein synthesis that got generalized into a conclusion about everything, and the fitness internet ran with the generalization. The narrower truth. For a person in energy balance, timing is largely cosmetic. For a person in a caloric deficit, timing is mostly about training performance. For a person on a deliberate lean bulk, where the entire question is whether the surplus calories build muscle or sit as fat. Timing is the variable that determines the outcome. This reframes a lot of the small choices that go into how to lean bulk. The pre-workout meal becomes a question of insulin trajectory rather than fuel. You want some insulin present when you finish lifting, not a spike during the lift itself. The post-workout meal becomes the largest meal of the day, ideally containing both protein and a meaningful amount of starch, and ideally eaten before changing clothes. By dinner, the door is closed, so the evening meal can be smaller without costing anything. The exact daily structure is mapped out inside the bulking blueprint. First link in the description. The supplements conversation shifts in the same direction. Most discussion of the best supplements for muscle growth focuses on what to take and how much. The post-workout sensitivity window changes the question from what to when. Creatine is taken daily, and timing's irrelevant for it. Whey protein within the window does two jobs at once, providing amino acids and triggering an insulin response from the leucine and the small carbohydrate load that usually accompanies it. Carbohydrate-heavy intro or post-workout drinks have a mechanistic basis inside the window that they don't have outside it. The supplement is the same molecule, the metabolic context isn't. There's a complication worth naming, and it changes how the window is used. The size of the insulin sensitivity window varies with the workout. A short, light, technique-focused session doesn't deplete glycogen enough to translocate much GLUT4. The window is correspondingly small. A long session with high volume, taken near failure on compound lifts, depletes more glycogen and recruits more contraction-mediated translocation. The window is correspondingly larger. This is one reason the same lean bulk diet can give different results in different programs even when the calories match. A bodybuilder running a true hypertrophy workout routine, 12 to 20 hard sets per muscle group per week, much of it taken within 2 reps of failure, generates a larger and longer window than a powerlifter doing low-rep singles. The dietary protocol that works for one won't work as well for the other. Both protocols are split out in the bulking blueprint. Pick the one that fits your training. Cardio comes into this too, briefly. Steady-state work opens a small GLUT4 window, but it does so without producing the muscle damage and protein synthesis signal that lifting does, which means the window opens into a tissue that isn't actively rebuilding. Done right after lifting in the same session, it extends the window slightly without adding much. Done on a separate day, it opens a window the lean bulker tends to fill with food, and ends up driving a small daily surplus on what was supposed to be a recovery day. The mechanism doesn't care about your scheduling preferences. The other complication is individual insulin sensitivity at baseline. 2 people can have the same body weight and very different fasting insulin levels. The lifter who's metabolically healthy starts the workout with more responsive muscle tissue and benefits more from any given timing strategy. The lifter who's insulin resistant, the lifter who came into the program a little skinny fat perhaps, or a little detrained, has a muscle bed that responds more sluggishly to all of this, which is exactly the lifter who most needs the timing precision and gets the least mileage from it in the short term. The good news is that consistent hard training restores muscle insulin sensitivity within weeks. The window becomes more useful as the lean bulk continues. If you want this systemized, the full 12-week build is in the bulking blueprint, link below. You can see now why the 2 lifters in the opening got different bodies. They were eating the same food, they were running the same plan, but one of them was loading the calories into the window, and the other was loading the calories outside of it. Over 12 weeks, the man eating outside the window asked his body to sort 3,000 kilocalories of surplus through ordinary metabolic rules. His adipose tissue was at the door for most of that work. The man eating inside the window asked his body to sort the same surplus through a temporarily re-weighted system, with his muscle at the door for the part that mattered. The 30-minute number itself is a rough average. In the literature, it ranges from about 20 minutes on the short end to roughly 2 hours on the long end, depending on the depletion. 45 minutes is a reasonable working figure. Treating it as a strict deadline misses the point. The curve is a slope, not a cliff, but the slope is steep enough that an hour matters, and 4 hours is past the useful zone. There's one more piece, easy to miss. The window has a chronic effect, as well as an acute one. Each post-workout meal eaten into the open window doesn't just sort that meal's calories, it also contributes, over weeks, to a muscle tissue with more glycogen storage and a denser bed of insulin receptors. The lean bulker who hits the timing well isn't only winning each individual meal, he's upgrading the machinery that'll sort the next year of meals. The lean bulker who misses the timing is doing the opposite. Chronic surpluses landing in adipose tissue produce adipose tissue that's itself less insulin sensitive over time, which compounds the problem. The two outcomes diverge faster than the calorie math would predict. The man who built muscle didn't know any of this when he chose to eat after training. He had a meeting at lunch, and his largest free block was right after the gym, so that's when he ate. His outcome was an accident of his schedule. The man who built fat had a different schedule and the same lack of information. The one variable that determined the difference between 4.5 pounds of muscle and 2 pounds of muscle wasn't something either of them thought they were controlling. The coach added one line to his template after that 12-week block. The line said, "Largest meal within 1 hour of training." Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.